reserving the right to object. You know, in Washington, there's always political rhetoric that goes around. The senator from New Hampshire just moments ago described the embassies in Europe that are missing ambassadors, and she said they're missing ambassadors because of Republican objections, and she highlighted in particular Ukraine. Mr. President, I'd like to point out there's some irony in her doing so, because actually the reason there is no ambassador in Ukraine is because of one thing and one thing only. President Biden has not nominated anybody to serve as ambassador to Ukraine. We're in December of the first year of his presidency, and Biden has yet to name an ambassador. And so there are no Republican holds, there are no Republican objections to an ambassador that Biden has not even named. In addition, there are multiple ambassadors that have been named that the Senate Foreign Relations Committee has yet to hold a hearing on. And for every one of those nominees on whom there hasn't been a hearing, again, there are no Republican objections. It is simply the Senate Democrats have failed to move forward with hearings. But there are a number of nominees who've been nominated and who've had hearings on whom I have holds. And we're here today, once again, because the Democrats in this chamber have been unwilling to do the one thing that would stop Vladimir Putin from potentially invading Ukraine, which is sanctioning the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and making sure that it never becomes fully operational. Now, Senator Shaheen, along with every other senator in this chamber, knows exactly why I have holds on these nominees. Right now, as we speak, over 100,000 Russian troops are massed on the border of Ukraine, waiting to invade. And it is Joe Biden's fault, because it is a direct consequence of President Biden's surrender to Vladimir Putin on Nord Stream 2. For those watching at home asking, what is Nord Stream 2? It's a pipeline being constructed from Russia to Germany to carry natural gas. Putin is building Nord Stream 2 to go around Ukraine because right now Russian gas gets to Europe through Ukraine. Putin didn't just wake up one day and decide to invade Ukraine. He's wanted to invade Ukraine for years. He did it in 2014, but he stopped short of a full invasion because he needed to use Ukrainian energy infrastructure to transport Russian gas to the European market. Ukraine's energy infrastructure is their insurance policy against a Russian invasion. Nord Stream 2 is all about Putin building an alternative avenue to get Russian gas to Europe. So if Nord Stream 2 comes online, it leaves Ukraine exposed to Russian aggression. Just 2 years ago, we had a bipartisan consensus in the Senate that we needed to stop Nord Stream 2. Now, Senator Shaheen knows that well because she and I authored the legislation together. She and I worked together to get the support of Democrats and Republicans in the Senate and the support of Democrats and Republicans in the House. And the Cruz-Shaheen legislation sanctioning Nord Stream 2 passed both houses of Congress overwhelmingly and was signed into law. And the Cruz-Shaheen legislation worked marvelously well. So well that Putin stopped construction of Nord Stream 2 the day that President Trump signed our legislation into law. Not even a week later, not a month later, the very day that our sanctions were signed into law. It was an incredible bipartisan national security victory that we won together. And that victory continued for over a year. For over a year, Nord Stream 2 lay dormant on the bottom of the ocean, dead. Until, unfortunately, Joe Biden became president. Almost from the moment of Election Day, Biden and the incoming administration began projecting weakness to Russia and Putin. And to understand just how much that message was received, Joe Biden was sworn in as president on January 20th, 2021. Putin began building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline again on January 24th, 2021, 4 days after Biden was sworn in. In the Senate, I introduced legislation again on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that passed in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in this Senate with overwhelming bipartisan support to sanction Nord Stream 2 yet again. But this summer, the Biden White House made a political decision to surrender completely to Putin on Nord Stream 2. And President Biden waived the sanctions on Nord Stream 2. He did so overruling the recommendations of his own State Department that argued this protects U.S. national security interests, this stands up to Russia, this protects Ukraine. The Biden White House didn't care about any of that, overruled it all. And then, unfortunately, Senate Democrats lost their willingness to hold Biden to account. This is an issue on which Democrats and Republicans are agreed on the substance. But it can be difficult to stand up to a president of your own party. And on Nord Stream 2, Senate Democrats have not been willing to do so. They were eager to do so when Donald Trump was in the White House. But when a Democrat was in the White House, suddenly their willingness to stand up to the president evaporated. And so the holds that I have placed are directly in order to try to force Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to follow the law and stand up to Russia and stand up to Putin. So I will offer my colleague, Senator Shaheen, a deal that I've offered many times to the White House, to the State Department, to the Treasury Department, to Senate Democrats. A deal that if we, as the Senate, will impose sanctions on Nord Stream 2, CAATSA sanctions, yet another Russia sanctions bill that both Senator Shaheen and I voted for, that we both advocated and supported, and that the Biden administration is refusing to apply. If the Senate will impose those sanctions, I will happily, enthusiastically lift my holds on these nominees, and Senator Shaheen can take her map of Europe and color in all of those countries. We can do that right now by doing the right thing substantively. And by the way, this is the one step which has a real possibility of stopping a Russian invasion of Ukraine. This past weekend, the Biden administration declassified their own internal projections that an invasion is imminent. It could happen as soon as January or February. And if we see Russian tanks in the streets of Kiev, it will be because Joe Biden surrendered to Putin and Senate Democrats weren't willing to hold him to account. I hope that's not the case. We could act right now to sanction Nord Stream 2, to stop the pipeline from being operational, to stop Putin and the soldiers at the border, to prevent the invasion, and to clear these ambassadorial nominees that my Democratic colleagues want. Accordingly, I ask unanimous consent that the Banking Committee be discharged from further consideration of S3322, and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is it?
The right to object.